Welcome, Louka Katseli.
Thank you.
You took part in the debate, are our economic policies effective? Now, are they?
Well, to understand if they are effective or not, especially for the average European citizen, you need to answer the following question. Who sets the agenda? Who monitors the outcomes? Who does the implementation? Who assesses the impact? And the conclusion of that panel was that the average citizen in Europe or elsewhere does not have the information to be able to increase his or her participation in the policy-making process. This is left to technocrats, and technocrats and decision makers in general have different agendas in mind. So we really need to judge whether a policy is effective or not. We really need to decide policy effectiveness for whom. And there are different stakeholders in the process. There is the decision maker who has his or her own goals. There are lobbies and interest groups which play an increasingly important role. There is financial institutions and regulators. They have very different objectives in mind. There are social groups. There are bureaucracies which implement policies, and they have their own agenda and their own goals. And there is society and the average citizen who sees an outcome and an impact on his or her own life. So the issue is, can we empower the average citizen to actually enhance his or her livelihood through policy? My answer to this is yes, but we need to empower him to understand the policy process and to actually set up mechanisms to allow him or her to do so.
So what needs to be changed for these mechanisms to be put in place?
I will come to the conclusion directly. I think we really need two things. First of all, to educate in our universities our students to understand public policy. And a side comment, it's interesting that whereas in the United States you have many public policy programs, in Europe you do not have sufficient public policy programs because this is an interdisciplinary area. And actually, as an outcome of today's decision, we took the initiative among ourselves to maybe organize a summer school in that direction. That's one. And secondly, we need to empower the average citizen, and we could do that by setting up an independent observatory for public policy outcomes. There is a lot of knowledge out there, but that knowledge needs to be harnessed to inform the average citizen.
So what do you think are the main challenges the EU is facing today when it comes to that type of policies?
Exactly what I told you before. For the average citizen, the EU policy is a black box. There is a bureaucratization of public policy in Europe. There is not a face. Remember when the Single Act was promoted, it was Jacques Delors was the one who promoted. There was a political process. Now, if you ask an average European who is responsible for refugee policy in Europe, who is responsible for austerity, the austerity package that was imposed in Greece or in Ireland or elsewhere, they cannot tell you. There are so many actors, the European Council, domestic parliaments, the EU Commission, etc. So we really need to rethink the governance of the European institutions, put a face on these institutions, and actually repoliticize EU policy making to make it accessible and to be able to disseminate the very good outcomes when we have good outcomes, to explain the difficult choices and actually monitor and assess the impact on average citizens.
It seems that you're saying that decision-making levels have to be redefined, and we tried some improvements. There were some improvements made to the European governance, but you said they were inadequate.
They are not sufficient. They are not sufficient. Let me give you an example, and the refugee policy is a very good example. It's not clear at all who is making the decision. How is this decision reached? Are they actually, is it a decision made by Germany and France? Who else is participating? Why were the decisions taken? Policies are not explained. So that says that we really need to revamp the governance structure to make it understood and to empower the average European citizen.
But that implies having also maybe an independent body monitoring all these new institutions.
Well, in my sense, that's why I said you need, even in EU, you need an observatory. Let me tell you what the IMF is doing, for example. The IMF, which is an organization which has an independent evaluation unit, which comes out and produces annual reports. You might agree or disagree with that report, but it's a report that actually independently monitors outcomes and gives explanations of why they succeeded or not relative to the agenda that was set. In Europe, in the European Commission, we don't have such a unit. On Greece, there was a report, an independent report done by the European Parliament, which again does not have the legitimacy, if you want, as a body. It was an ad hoc body. It's not institutionalized, let me put it this way. At the same time, you have auditors which do their independent evaluation, but neither the first nor the second is accessible to the average European citizen. And so we really need to rethink the way the Commission and also the ECB and also the other European institutions, the regulator of banks like SSM or the ESM, the European mechanism, and HFSF, the Hellenic, for example, Stability Fund, explains the decisions and monitors the outcomes.
Well, thank you very much, Louka Katseli, for this interview.
You're welcome.